Welcome back to Fast Market here on the TD Ameritrade Network. Let's bring in our next guest for our cash tag segment, and that's going to be Andy Swan, co-founder of LikeFolio. Welcome back to the show, Andy.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, too. Much needed at this point. We're talking audiobooks. You guys wanted to hit on that a little bit. That equates to maybe Amazon with their Audible, but then also Spotify has audiobooks now. What kind of data are you seeing? Are we starting to see some decent numbers from LikeFolio here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we really think of audiobooks as kind of, this multi-year version of podcasts. If we look at how podcasts grew for Spotify, it was through the charts, and it really set the company apart from all of its other streaming music peers. And when we look at audiobooks as a general trend among the consuming public, we're seeing steady growth 5 quarters in a row. They really surged during the beginning of the pandemic as people were looking for something to do. But this is one of those trends that has really stuck around, and the growth is resuming and accelerating. So we really like this space, and we really like specifically what Spotify is doing in this space. Amazon has had its Audible offering for quite some time. It's very popular. It's a subscription basis, really nice product. But what Spotify is proving is that you can be a little bit late to the game, and if you do it right, it can work. And we're really seeing Spotify start to take market share from Amazon in terms of audiobooks. And what's really interesting about this is Spotify took a completely different business model. On Spotify, you can actually purchase the book and own the book, unlike on Amazon, where you need to continue your subscription in order to continue listening to the book. The big loser out of all this, shockingly, is Apple, who entered the fray late, like Spotify, but in a very convoluted kind of weird way. They've got audiobooks that they're trying to use artificial intelligence to be the reader of the book to you, and it just isn't nearly as compelling as professional voice actors like Spotify has. So, right now, bottom line is we're seeing audiobooks be the next podcast, the next big boom in streaming audio, and Spotify is the one that's starting to take Amazon's market share while Apple completely falls flat.
Andy, you just made a great point about Spotify, and that is you can enter a market late and still do well. How do I know that? Ask iTunes, ask Pandora, right? How they do it. Spotify wasn't anywhere near as early as them, and they now dominate these things. So if you think they can't be effective in books or what they call long-form content, they will be, right? So I think that is incredible how they continue to find new areas. And you're right. The number one thing, they're not doing it. They're doing it better than their competitors. And, Amazon, they've got to be feeling the heat because they just announced this September 20th of last year. Yeah. And your numbers show they got a pretty impressive market share. So Spotify, whatever game they're getting into, whatever sector they're getting into, they do it well, Andy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we saw it with the way they did that big splash deal with Joe Rogan and some other podcasters to bring them over to the platform exclusively and really build that out. And I think really what it comes down to is Spotify is just becoming very, very good at being the default app for sound, for audio, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a song, or now whether it's an audiobook. They're dominating this space as much, we think, as Netflix is dominating video. And so, just a company that consistently gets it right. They seem to take their time and really respect their audience, and I think that's really paying off for Spotify.
Now, Andy, having a new offering like this for audiobooks and the growth that they're seeing, by the end of this year, they report earnings next week. They're supposed to have around 480 million monthly subscribers to their service. So, they're more of a global company, right? They're based over in the EU at this point. Is this probably taking away some of maybe the podcasts? Because it seems like that's starting to wane as far as popularity goes. So is it people switching maybe to audiobooks a little bit more? Or is it just another revenue stream that they can grow even bigger?
Yeah, I think it's another revenue stream. I think podcasting kind of hit a little bit of that kind of critical mass where it got so big that it was hard to maintain the growth rate. There's only so long that people can listen to their devices. But what Spotify has now is multiple revenue streams, multiple subscription revenue streams. Now they have, purchase a book in one fell swoop, and the ad network that they're creating to allow people to listen to ads, not just based on the specific book or podcast or song that they're listening to, but across the board, what is this person into? Spotify, because they have all three of those channels, can really understand the user a lot better than simply, someone trying to throw an ad in the middle of a random podcast. So I think they're building that audience profile really, really well, while at the same time respecting their audience highly.
Now, they got earnings next week, Andy. Do you guys have an earnings score going into this report? Because the stock's up, 29% so far this month.
Yeah, we like Spotify a lot long term. From an earnings perspective, I would really love to see it pull back a little bit before we get into earnings. But overall, we think they'll have a good report. They'll have a lot of reason to be optimistic looking forward. It's just a matter of, has the stock run too far at this point, which is, kind of a tough call.
All right, got it. I think that movement in the overall market and some names, we just talked about NVIDIA too, it's scaring me a little bit when these stocks are up so exponentially going into earnings, and we've got some big ones next week. All right, great stuff as always, Andy. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
All right, that's Andy Swan, co-founder of LikeFolio, breaking down the data for us on Spotify.